Monolith's Wonder Woman game is in trouble, according to Kinda Funny's Greg Miller. He says he talked to an insider across the last year, and the game is troubled. According to Miller, I think it's not where they want it to be. I don't think it's ready for prime time. WTF, and he literally said that out, is Warner Brothers doing? What do they want to do? What are they trying to do with these games? I could easily see it. You close that studio, you cancel the project. This comes after fans noticed a Wonder Woman job listing at Monolith back in November 2023 over, quote, helping maintain a live software product or game, which Warner Brothers then denied outright to IGN when they wrote it up. Warner Brothers said Wonder Woman is not being designed as a live service. They reiterated that it's a third-person open-world single-player action adventure, and it does feature the Nemesis system, which was last seen in Shadow of War back in 2017 for the love of God. But still, so that's Warner Brothers, whoever was that contact, saying it won't be a live service game. However, you have Warner Brothers' own CEO, David Zaslav, saying during that same month, November 2023, during an earnings call, that he wants all their biggest properties to include more always-on gameplay through live services, multi-platform, and free-to-play extensions. And I should also say that during the most recent Kinda Funny live stream, you did have co-host Andy Cortez reiterate the reality of games coming together at the last minute, which was the case with God of War 2018. Some AAA titles don't come together until the closing months, literally. But Wonder Woman was announced back in December 2021, so then it's been an additional almost 3 years of development on top of whatever stage it was at when it got announced. So you would assume that the various main project goals, milestones, etc. are in place. This feels like another Warner Brothers butchering of something that's in motion. And I know we've done so many negative pieces. Me and Josh talked about it this morning about just how many bits of negative Warner Brothers coverage there are. However, it's not like they don't keep serving up homers for us to keep hitting. Ewan, what do you think?
Oh, I think we need like some kind of Warner Brothers prop, like a dummy that we can pelt.
The actual Warner Brother himself,
or something.
Yeah.
Man, this is just ridiculous. To give them the benefit of the doubt, like obviously what Andy Cortez says there is completely true. Games can come together in the last few months. However, based on the wealth of evidence that we've seen of Warner Brothers over the last decade, I don't know why I did Matt Berry. The last decade of Warner Brothers, like we know that these things aren't coming together. The way that projects are being managed and reshuffled and cancelled and then remangled, it's so frustrating. And it has been. 2017 was when we got Shadow of War, right? Shadow of War.
And Shadow of Mordor was 2014.
2014. I feel sorry for these studios that are taking they're blocked. And obviously we've got to bear in mind, game development is getting longer and longer. But it's not just a Monolith thing. Like Warner Brothers Games Montreal, after Arkham Origins came out, they were put onto Suicide Squad. That game got canned. They went on to do a Damian Wayne open world game. That got canned and got turned into Gotham Knights. Rocksteady were working on something that then became Suicide Squad. It just feels to me like there is a lack of cohesion going on here. We know that WB Games Montreal have another game in the works as well, based on a DC property. I think there's also talk of them lending some support to Monolith on Wonder Woman. I think I heard that the other week as well. So yeah, I'm really frustrated that, like, again, another case of why have you shown off the game, like, when it's nowhere near ready to be shown off at all. A Wonder Woman game could be great. It also really annoys me that they're sitting on the Nemesis system because obviously they've trademarked that now. So there's so many different ways you could use that, and it's just stuck with Monolith on a Wonder Woman game, which doesn't even make that much sense because how can you Nemesize the rogues gallery of an established comic? I don't know. I'm just getting really
using the lasso of truth, mate.
I'm just getting a bit tired. We need the lasso of truth around David Zaslav. So, mate, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Hang him upside down and figure out what the hell is actually going on with this series. Josh, you can choose to leap in if you want to. I totally get it.
Oh, no. Well, it's this thing. I'm going to be very quiet during this, and it's just because I'm so over it, man.
I'm tired, boss.
I'm tired, boss. We literally did a news yesterday on Multiverses, man, where I'd just be repeating all of the same things.
That's how I found out I lost all my stuff.
It is pretty much echoing what Ewan said there. We get so much WB news both across the gaming industry and the movie industry, and it feels like they have no idea what they're doing across the board. We already know that they're pushing further towards live services and mobile style games, and it seems like even though they will continue to produce AAA games, just the vibe I get from everything those executives have said seems to me to indicate that they want to slash the budgets and just do the absolute bare minimum, which does not bode well for something like Wonder Woman. But I think the biggest casualty is the amount of talented studios they have, the Monoliths, the NetherRealms, the Rocksteadies, the WB Montreals, who could make great games and are clearly trying to, because you can see them just lashing out in the games themselves, trying to create something good and then having stuff either imposed on them or grafted onto it. Like, you cannot tell me, I mean, I could be completely wrong, you cannot tell me it was the developer's idea to choose the progression system and monetization systems in something like Multiverses after delaying it from the beta. Like, that might be true, but like you said, from what we've seen from WB and what they've explicitly said, saying the quiet part loud, I just don't see them as a publisher that actually cares about the artistry of games, or a company that cares about the artistry of absolute everything. And I just will be repeating myself if I go on any further. I want Wonder Woman to be good. I want Andy Cortez to be right. I want it to come together at the last minute. But my hope is extinguished, and I'll tell you why. I had hope for Suicide Squad right until the moment that I played it. I was there a week before launch saying, well, at least the story might be good.
Brainiacs.
It might be great. And then they hit me with 13 Brainiacs. So I'm a broken shell of a man. And in 13 Brainiacs was the end for me. I'm
very fair.
tapped out.
I think, to that end, like talking about the reality of Monolith as the game developer here, the fact that they've only had 2 games in 10 years, assumedly because of the way that they're handled under Warner Brothers, and the fact that Miller, talking to an insider, is saying that it's even viable, like floating it in the next sentence, saying, look, I can see the viability for them just shutting the studio down, just because of how disconnected someone like David Zaslav is, when during that earnings call, there was a whole thing where he was like, we've barely done anything with Harry Potter, and it's like, of all the franchises you could tap, Hogwarts Legacy is absolutely flying.
Sir, I have one more thing to say, if you'll permit me. Just one more, because I think from what they were saying there about maybe shutting the studio down, it wouldn't surprise me that if in 5 years WB Games as a division was either sold off or Lucasfilms itself, because man, when the merger was going through initially with Discovery,
they were trying to sell them to EA and
they were initially going to try and sell them off anyway. That was the rumor doing the round, that they didn't really want to get into games, and then they had that realization that we reported on a few months ago now, where David Zaslav and the other executives were saying, oh, look how much money we could make in games. And I just feel like Disney before them, they're going to realize how piss hard that is and how difficult it is to get those successes. And after a few attempts go, actually, we don't want anything to do with this. Someone else can take these studios.
It's really interesting how this has shifted, because obviously when Disney get Lucasfilm, they shut down LucasArts in 2013.
Yes.
And then they licensed it all out to EA. That doesn't go to their benefit. Then they set up Lucasfilm Games, which is its own in-house licensing and publishing arrangement, where they will handpick out who to dish out the Star Wars license to, which is probably the most healthy way of doing it. Obviously, you would have liked to have a LucasArts, but if that's the way they're going to do it, that makes sense. Marvel doesn't have an in-house gaming division, obviously also owned by Disney. It just licenses its stuff out. But you're totally right. If Warner Brothers has its own gaming studios that it can leverage, it is obscene that Marvel have been able to get out as many games as they have in this space of time, compared to a company that owns Rocksteady, WB Games Montreal, and NetherRealm. Like, that is truly daft to me.
Yeah, and the Rocksteady, to that conversation, like the 2 founders, I forget their names now, Sefton Hill
and Jamie Walker.
Jamie Walker have signed with Xbox to do their next game. Like, they left Rocksteady in the middle of Suicide Squad's development. And I think that's another thing, is like, I wanted to touch on how various studios, various publishers just seem to inherit the baton of hate, to quote a Chris Rock term. But at one point, I felt like Ubisoft were the most hated company in gaming. Then it went to Activision for a while, it was Blizzard for a while, it was Konami for a while, and at the minute, it's Warner Brothers. Just some publisher is always standing in the way and saying, we can take all these bullets, we're fine, we can weather the storm, the games will still sell, and they don't. Suicide Squad obviously being the biggest and most recent example of that. But still, to bring it back down to the gameplay in the video game, mentioning Monolith and mentioning the fact that they did trademark the Nemesis system, which meant that no other studio could make use of that stuff. They patented it, couldn't make use of that in terms of that sort of factional warfare, remixing enemy factions and making them fight each other, etc. The fact that they own that is just so crappy.
What if they get shut down? What happens to that patent? It's nobody's patent now.
It just sits in the Warner Brothers
vault with Coyote versus Acme.
Because there's one thing this reminds me of, which is back in the 90s, Namco trademarked the idea of separate games taking place on loading screens. It's why you could play Galaga back in Ridge Racer. But they trademarked that for about 20 odd years. That that finally like lifted in the middle of the late 2010s. However, obviously the reality of game development means that it's very rare that you're going to have an extra game in your loading screen, or maybe they want to just sell you that with a separate price tag. So it didn't really come back. But that was such a cool idea.
Yeah.
The idea of just you're loading a game anyway, play some old classic or something. At some point, it's just a good thing for the consumer, for the gamer, for the player. Why not? At least if you're Warner Brothers, license out the Nemesis system for the love of God.
Imagine if they patented the free flow combat from Batman Arkham.
I know, right?
We would have done if they could.
This is what I was going to say, right? Because I was looking at some Reddit threads this morning, and I agree with a lot of people in their sentiments. They were saying in response to that patent, like, almost how dare you? Because you have Shadow of Mordor, a game I really love, but is inarguably, I would say, indebted to so many other open world games at the time.
Assassin's Creed Arkham,
and lives quite liberally from the combat style to the mission design, and pretty much everything about it feels like stuff inspired by other games. To then have like one really good idea after making use of other people's ideas and going, that one's ours and no one else can have it. It's like, God damn it, guys.
But also, like, it's such a weird precedent to be able to trademark and lock down and patent a gameplay mechanic. That's never really done. Like, I forget, it's been years since I looked into the Namco one, but the specifics of how they phrased that, I was like, okay, I can see how you can say this is a signature thing and whatever. But the idea of trademarking this sort of factional warfare thing where you're turning NPCs to your side, and then the various permutations of that or variables of that, you'd assume other studios would get around that, but I guess they just don't want to even chance it. But at the beginning of the last generation, there was that whole conversation like this could be the future. This is such a defining part of the 8th generation, and it wasn't allowed to be that. Thankfully, other gameplay ideas didn't get locked down, but like that's such a horrific way to approach a medium, like patenting a lens type or something, so people can't do a certain size of shot in a film. Like I just think it's ludicrous at this point.
Like George Lucas is going to patent the dissolves in the screen, like from Star Wars.
Palmer's there. No one gets to do a split diopter but me, Brian De Palma.
Hey.
That's mine.